Good morning, everyone. Welcome to American Scouts Morning Coffee or Tea with American Scouts on a Wednesday morning. And that's right, I'm back at it. World's greatest dads. It's in the house over here. How are we doing? Hope everybody's well. It's international break. So at least there's no disappointment happening at the same time, aside from the fact that we have to deal with international soccer, which these games are kind of weird. Some groups these mean a lot, especially like in the European groups, and some it's kind of like meh. Like I know, like Turkey is in one of those groups. Probably will be over after Saturday morning, so I don't even know what they're gonna do next week. So there's not a lot of excitement in that aspect of international soccer either. Some groups there is because it's pretty tight, but some groups is pretty much all said and done for over here. But not a lot of headlines this morning, and as you guys notice, I am flying solo. John hopefully should be back in action soon. He's in the process of moving and all that kind of stuff, getting settled in. Got bigger responsibilities, new job. He's just becoming an adult right in front of our eyes over here. So he'll be back shortly. And Audrey could not be here this morning, as well as Mark with like scheduling stuff. So flying solo with you guys. Hopefully in the chats you can throw some stuff my way, and then we'll kind of like take a look at some of the headlines and see if we can make sense of some things. Not a lot. Some of them are, if you go to sites like this is Enfield or Echo and stuff like that, they're basically trying to scramble some news over there just to have stuff. One of them I saw, obviously they're talking a lot about and I'm sure most of you guys have seen it, that the VAR audio for the call against City came out. And look, it's hard to make that game about that call. Sadly, we have not played decent enough, I should say, to be able to kind of like make that the main focus and say, hey, if that wasn't. But hey, in a game like that, you do never know. Like a goal can change momentum. Goals change games. Not only the most obvious Michael Owen sense of things, but also changes momentum, could have changed the mindsets. And we're talking about it with Galley. I think there's a certain thing where with VAR, when you think you scored, and I'm sure they knew they were playing poorly, and you're like, hey, we scored. So you can kind of like erase the early on maybe in your head as a player and say, hey, you know what? It's all even now, regardless of how shit we played. Let's go. So maybe that's where the momentum shifts. Whereas when the goal gets disallowed, then it's like, oh, we're back to the same ruts kind of a thing. It's almost like even worse. I was giving the lottery example on Monday night, but it could have changed the game. I am not honest. Like when you first of all, they go really easy where one guy says, hey, is there any way to see the heights? And kind of like gets ignored. They're like, don't worry about the height. We just made the call over here while you're looking for like another angle because he wants to see, like, he wants to get it so that it sounds like he wants to see the goalie's vision, like how he's viewing things. And they kind of blow it off. They don't really spend the whole time on that. I think the biggest thing that bugs at least me, and I would think, and you guys can tell me, I think it's probably the most for Liverpool fans as well in general, is we saw Bernardo Silva like literally right in front of the goalie, ducking, as that is not distracting to the goalie. You might not be in his, like, you're clearly in his vision because you're in front. I can see if a guy ducks in front of me, I might be able to see the ball, but you're still in my vision. I'm seeing you. So having seen that called and taken as okay by the same people, and then this not being okay makes it really, really iffy at best. And I think this is what's my complaint is the inconsistency. No rival bros this week, but we'll definitely probably talking about this with Edip next week on rival bros, because I don't think this is just like a Liverpool issue. I know we kind of like make it like a Liverpool issue only, but I think this is league wide. Obviously, we know the ones that we get screwed on, but I guarantee you, like, when we talk on the panel show, for example, every team can bring out certain instances you might not recall unless it's like really, really highlighted. You guys might not like remember that Palace Newcastle game kind of a thing. But trust me, like if you go and if you ask Sully from Newcastle like specific calls, he can list you a bunch where they felt VAR screwed them over. You can ask Shay, he'll give you like a bunch of Villa stuff, Glenn with Brentford. Like every team has the inconsistency is ridiculous. How we cannot use this technology to kind of make things effective is ridiculous. Good morning, Adam. How are we doing? I think the biggest thing is like they talked about that it kind of like took a mind of its own, like the whole VAR thing. It was supposed to be, oh, okay, you're just going to help like key decisions, right? And then obviously the technology is there, you do want to use it more, but at the same time they were like, oh, we don't want it to re-referee the game and we don't want it to interfere, which I think that has gone out the window now, because I mean obviously they're doing it all the time, they're interfering and they are kind of like re-refereeing the game because they're interfering, like things that, I mean, I see this in the Turkish league as well, things that the players themselves, and God knows we know the players will complain if there's even a possibility of something going their way, right? um we go back and look at things even the players did not even like think was a big deal or was like a missed call and stuff like that. So that is the definition of, I think, re-refereeing the game. We're kind of going back and watching something 30 seconds ago that everybody on the pitch moved on from. Like we did not think it was a big deal, we didn't even complain or anything like that. So I think that's like the biggest issue there, is it's taking a mind of its own. They don't really know how to use it. I agree with Adam over here. It is a good idea. It's not being used correctly. And yes, I think that's the biggest thing. Look, as an old fart, that was my initial complaint, right? Like it kind of messed with the flow of the game. But now I'm at the point where, okay, you're already messed up the flow of the game. So that's gone. That's out the door. So that's gone. So at least get the shit right is where I'm at now. Like if you already destroyed the pace of the game, and you will, because after every goal and all that kind of stuff, I get that. So I'm giving you that already. You've taken that away from me. The least you can do is in return give me accurate decisions and consistent decisions, because for decades you told us, well, you guys have the luxury of looking at replays. Well, jackass, now you're looking at replays as well. So how do you not make a call that obvious? And why do we have to do the clear and obvious things if we're going to referee and move? If you're going to bring the game back to 45 seconds before and basically overrule the referee at that sense of referee the game, why do we still do the clear and obvious thing is another deal. Like, so the guy making a snap decision where he's barely seeing it and it's moving fast, it's this is such a hard job, which it is. Look, I freaking referee kids and it's hard, so I can only imagine the pace of and like obviously the physicality and stuff like that of pro leagues. I get it, but so that guy is more likely to make a mistake than the guy watching replays. So why do we have to be 100% sure to override that guy? Whereas like we're seeing it over here, and yeah, it definitely looks like that. Why don't we? Why that phrase is still there is still beyond me too. So they really have to tweak it to a point where it's more consistent. This is in every league. It's not only in the Premier League. I think the Premier League rightfully gets a lot more criticism because you're putting billions into this. You should be able to do a lot better. Like you should be. If not that is consistent either, but it's a lot more consistent than I feel like soccer. Like if NFL can do it with their billions, where they have more cameras, like they have like a better system where like New York interferes and stuff like that. If they can do it, I don't understand why soccer can't improve it with billions watching, billions being spent, invested, and all that kind of stuff, and being on the line. By the way, it's being abused by a few referees for self gratification. I think so too, but I mean, it's everywhere, Alan. I mean, it feels like it's in every league. Kevin says, "Is this true? Is Fenerbahce the only unbeaten team?" I don't think so. Did they? Not no. I don't know. I'll have to look. Now you made me wonder. See, it has been that's the only highlight of this weekend has been Fenerbahce, to be honest with you, because at least Galatasaray last time they won, so I had that going for me because everything else was down the drain this weekend. But the penalty Manchester City got was never a penny. The VAR goal should have stood. See, I think that's a penalty. I like the one they got. I think that's a penalty. Is it soft? Yes. But is it the penalty? Yes. Anybody who's been in that situation, when he shifts his body to the right, it doesn't take a whole lot for you to, when you're moving at that pace and you're cutting on top of it, it doesn't take a whole lot to lose your balance. You're already like, close because you're cutting. So I can see the contact from Amardashvili kind of like throwing him off. And here's the thing, if he's balanced, he has an empty net to shoot at. I mean, I know there's like a couple of defensive players kind of on the line or whatever, but he's still shooting to an empty net. I did not have a huge problem with the penalty personally. And I try to look at those things where if it happens to like Mo or Gakpo or somebody, what game was that it happened to Gakpo? Was that the Real Madrid game? Right? Madrid game, right? They looked at that like where he cuts and the guy kind of like hit him on the heel. We wanted a penalty, right? I mean, that's how I try to look at it. I found it very similar where it doesn't take a lot to get you off your balance when you're cutting in, especially you cutting in and now you're about to shift your body the other way because you're going to take a shot. And it doesn't take a whole lot. And I thought that was a penalty for Gakpo and Real. And the same reason I think this is a penalty. And it wasn't clear and obvious to be like reversed or whatever. And thank God it didn't affect the game. Maybe I was so mad at Konate that I was giving that I was giving that penalty to Konate more than anything else because of his goofiness. But and it was saved. Maybe it's a bit easier to forgive. But I thought it was a penalty when I watched the highlight. Or let me say it this way. I said they're not overturning this because you can see the contact and they're not going to judge how big the contact is. I do agree with this, Adam, like that if it's clear and obvious, it shouldn't take forever. If it is taking forever, it's not clear and obvious. But I don't know how persistent we are now with that clear and obvious aspect of things because it doesn't feel like it at times. Like I say, keep going back. I think it's the inconsistency of how it's implemented. Even like the system is not great, like Adam was saying earlier. But aside from that, now you have a system that is not perfect either way, and you're implementing it very imperfectly, if you will. So it just makes it a lot worse. Alan says, doesn't matter who the keeper might have been, it was purely momentum that carried. Yeah, I mean, but it doesn't have to be intentional to be a penalty. I mean, he's basically going there. He slides like maybe like another like 6 inches more than he normally would, but he does make contact. You can kind of see like his cleat, I think, was right there. So yeah, I did not have a huge problem with like the penalty, and mainly because I thought the Gakpo was on a penalty earlier against Real. And this is what I try to look at those like, would we want a penalty in that sense? If it was Gakpo cutting in like that, we wish. But if Gakpo was like, taking the defenders on into the box and then cutting in, and we would want a penalty for that. We would say, hey, look, there is contact. And that's why I didn't have a huge problem with it. But this is where we go bounce back and forth. And on top of that, I think it's like kind of like silly that like when did this become a thing where that's like a European call, like a Premier League is different. So when did the game become like different in different countries and stuff? Like what the heck is going on there? Like because I've heard it a lot now. I mean, we had that penalty against Galatasaray that we all said, hey, this would not be called in the Premier League. Well, why is it calling in Europe? I guess more than that, if it's being called in Europe, why is it not being called in the Premier League? Why are the rules different? Because that was never, I don't recall. Scratch that. Maybe in the past you said it was mostly like physicality, though, right? Like you said, hey, they would probably let that play in the Premier League because it was physical, whereas they call it in another league. Like, something that doesn't get called in the Turkish league might be called in the Spanish league against Barcelona or something like that. I can see that. Kevin, 8-4, right? Dude, some of those draws are so stupid. Don't even get me started over here. I'm so annoyed by that, but it's down to 1 point over there at least. So but I mean that's what a forward is gonna do though, right? I mean, he didn't initiate the contact. He might have left his foot there an extra second or whatever, but that's what a striker does, and that's why you don't go and sliding like that in the box. And I'm not blaming Mamardashvili by any means. Don't get me wrong. That thing is all on Konate over there. But there's a reason why, especially like Alan was saying, when it's pouring down rain, you don't all go in. Like, you have to watch it. You don't slide as like it's a lot more fun to slide, but it's a lot harder to control your slide in the rain. Especially now. I mean, obviously back in the day, when I was playing, you didn't have to worry about like a instant red and stuff like that. But I feel like now doesn't matter if it's intentional or not. If you make like a ridiculous contact because you slid due to like the wet ground, you're gonna get called and you're gonna get a red card and all that kind of stuff. So it's not on Mamardishvili by any means, but I think, yeah, I don't put that on. I mean, that's good on Doku if he was there. And same thing that Gakpo did. Just Gakpo didn't get the call and Doku did. But that's not because I feel like Gakpo should have gotten the call as well, I guess is my point. They both should have been penalties. To me, that one is a penalty. I have no complaints on that one. Is this soft? Yes. But when you go by the letter of the law and you look at the situation, and would you want it if it was your player, is the way I try to look at all these. I would. If that was Gakpo, I want that penalty because otherwise he should. If there's that no, if that contact is not there, my guy is shooting into an empty net. So I would want it again. 115 FC is at it again. I think that's like we were talking about this yesterday with my brother. I don't know if you guys heard about all the stuff that's going on in Turkey in terms of the league, like referees betting and all that kind of stuff. And I was, it's always been an issue anyway. Like anything that's something happened is the federation. God's side definitely gets taken care of in Turkey, similar to how, like Real gets taken care of in Spain, kind of a deal. But I mean, mostly in the Premier League, we did not have how do I want to phrase this? Reasonable grounds to think that there is something shady going on, and all these like these guys afterwards refereeing in Qatar and stuff like that, or Arab Emirates and stuff like that, is really making it more first of all, there should be something against that, I feel like, so that's it does not open the door to me or a bunch of people saying this, because I think we're all saying this, right? How convenient that it's Oliver again, is this gang that goes over there and freaking like referees city games. Maybe don't put them in cities games. I mean, if you're gonna let your guys go, and I'm assuming it's by contract or whatever, which I'm sure when they negotiate the contracts, they can negotiate accordingly and say, hey, you're not going to a country to referee a game where that country pretty much owns a club in the league that you should be partial in, right? But I think that's dangerous territory. The 150. What happened to the 115, Joey? Like, that's a great point. Like, it's kind of like totally forgotten. I mean, we talk about yesterday when we were talking about all these like referees. Now they caught a bunch of players gambling in Turkey as well. Mind you, not on the games they're playing or anything like that. At least the guys on the higher level, nothing came out as they gambled in their own games. But I guess my example to Edu was, if you're hiring a lawyer, right? Let's say you need a divorce lawyer or something like that. And you're not going to say, if this guy has done some like fraud over there, he's like, yeah, but that wasn't like marriage related, so I'm still gonna hire this lawyer. You're not gonna trust that dude. So if that guy is betting over there against the rules already, even if he's on a team, he's definitely doing something else. He might not be, but automatically I have no faith in this dude now being totally ethical, doing everything else, because clearly he can't be ethical here. Not to mention he's stupid enough to be unethical, using his own freaking name and betting and stuff. Some of these guys in Turkey, I don't know if you guys heard this whole story, and I do feel like it will start carrying over. If people think this only happens in Turkey, you got another thing coming. You are ridiculous. Yeah, I got a couple of bridges I can sell you at great prices. So but some of these guys are saying that all these accounts were created using their Turkey has a system where it's similar to the social security number in the US over here. I'm sure that UK has something similar where you have your number. Basically, you're a number to the government, so you have your number, and they're like, oh, they must have opened the account. Why somebody would do that? I mean, some of these players are like, dude, like nobody even knows you. Like, why would they even, it's not like they picked a guy and they targeting him or somebody famous or something like that. Why would they pick you of all people? And there's nothing for them to gain doing it off of your name and stuff. But that's what a lot of the referees and a lot of the players are claiming, that these accounts were opened using their numbers. It's not really them if you buy it and stuff. So, dude, I can see it happening everywhere. I know, you know, because Italians, like, I'm assuming you're saying Italy, for example, because of the mafia and stuff. Well, I mean, it's not like they don't have a passport or they can just go. I mean, if you don't think it's happening in, like, I mean, here's another thing. Most of the stuff is not happening in Liverpool City games because that's like, billions watching it. Why would you do that? It's happening in a second division game in Portugal. So, but, I think it's happening everywhere. If you guys think that there's no Premier League players are actually doing the same thing in gambling, maybe one, they might not be stupid enough to do that under their own name, or two, it's probably not been investigated like they did it in Turkey over there. But having said that, without going into Turkish politics over here and giving you guys a briefing on that, it can't be trusted because they've done stuff. The powers that be can kind of finagle claims and allegations and proof that suddenly disappears afterwards after you're in jail for like 5 years and stuff. So, kind of like in a country like that, there's not a lot of trust in terms of the judicial system and the cops as well. So God knows. But I do think, and this is the sports fault, if you're going to milk the cow that's gambling, you're going to have to deal with it afterwards. And I think that's what it is. Oh man, I have not actually. That's a good call, Kevin. Yeah, I'm assuming they are like already freaking out, but because of the loss and stuff. Because I think they're paranoid, and I think they know, they look at city and the objects in their view mirror cross are closer than they appear, kind of a deal. I think, I don't think they're afraid of us anymore, but um I think like they should be afraid of city, probably mostly. I don't know, like, do you guys see, it's hard to put us in a title conversation and make a case for it. You don't win him in November, but you can lose him in November, kind of a deal. I really think when we come back from the international break, we'll probably look at the fixtures a lot more next week. But I think when you look at the fixtures, there is possibility to be able to make a run and see if you're in the mix. It's almost like it reminds me of, like, like a basketball game where you're like down by like 18 or something like that in the third quarter. You're like, hey, maybe if we bring it to 10 before the fourth quarter starts, maybe we're in it, right? We can make a game of it because there's a chance, kind of a deal. So I see this November, December as like that third quarter, the last 6 minutes of the third quarter over here. Let's see if we have a good run, if we can cut it down to like 4 points or something like that, where you beat them and you take the 3 points away and stuff like that, so it's not a huge ordeal. So the fact that we will still play all these teams again, I think automatically you put that 3 points in question, right? It can go your way. Yes, you don't want to have a game that you have to win or anything like that, but still, it's like 3 points you can catch if you're in form and you do take care of your business. So I think it's kind of, we'll see what happens. I think I'll call it in December sometime based on the run we have with fixtures that look slightly easier, at least on paper. I mean, like, but depends on how we play, right? If we play like this, I don't think there is an easy fixture on paper or on the pitch and stuff. So Adam says we can still, I think so. I mean, I think we got to figure out a way to get the most out of those guys. I still think, and in the long run, especially, like I say, I don't really anticipate this team, the way things are, to like rattle off like 8, 9 wins in a row. I just don't. It doesn't look like it. But you never know. The potential is there. The talent is there. The players are there. Will they be able to do it? I don't know. They have to prove it to us for us to be like, yeah, I guess. If I see 3, 4, then I'll be like, yeah, maybe they can do this, kind of a deal. But when you win one, win two, you get your hopes up, then you get down again. It's kind of hard to say, oh yeah, this team can go on a run for like 10 games or whatever. But I mean, the funny thing is, like somebody was calling my brother out um on Sunday show, I think. After finding out about your one, like Kevin was saying, and Galatasaray lost. I mean, a month and a half ago, when we were watching that team, we were like, yeah, they're not going anywhere. like, this is going to get worse and worse and worse. God says going to just walk with this. So things change, and they can change really fast because it's all about like momentum and more importantly form. And you can kind of tell, like, Mo, like, go back to for a month or so before he goes to Afghan to himself. You don't know. I mean, that sequence in the City game where like it goes right off to the left post. I mean, that's almost a guaranteed goal last year. It almost is. You almost expect that to bounce and go into that corner there, but it's like one of those years for him. But more importantly, like Slot has to figure out what had changed in the Turkish league was like, obviously Mourinho left and the new Tedesco came in and stuff like that. But and I'm not saying Liverpool should be changing managers. That'd be the stupid thing to do, and I think that's a stupid conversation for Slot out. But he's has to make some of the tough decisions and say, "Yeah, we're doing this." Is that benching Mo or coming up with a formation that doesn't maybe totally suit Mo, so he's not a regular? Whatever it might be, he has to make those tough calls. I think during this international break and say, "Okay, this is what we're going to do," and there will be some unhappy people. How he is going to manage that is going to be the issue. I think the challenge of having a deeper squad and more options is that. And that's why when people go back and always call Pep, like a checkbook manager and stuff like that, which, yes, I get it. He was always access to a lot of money to buy players. But the challenge is to be able to manage a squad like that without a lot of drama and be able to rotate properly and have a system that kind of like works as you rotate and keeping people happy. I think that's the challenge. We really have not had this problem, if you want to call it a problem, for quite some time. This is probably like the deepest the squad has been in a while. If you look at it, when you look at it now, I know like you look at the form and stuff like that, but when you look at it up and down, and you look, for example, you look at the squad we threw out against City. I mean, that's first of all a title winning squad, and then you put Ekitike on there, who's like I think has been like excellent. You have Isak on the squad, you have Veers in the squad, you have Frimpong in the squad, you brought Kirkes, the best left back in the league last season, and stuff like that. So there's a lot of great players. It's a pretty deep squad. When you make these tweaks and somebody gets left out, it's important how they respond to it. I think, when you kicked, for example, Robertson out initially and it didn't bring in, it didn't work. So you brought him back in, and now Kerkez is coming off the bench, and I think they'll rotate probably more moving forward. That's probably, I think today Hungary plays, or maybe it was tomorrow. I was like, oh, that's an interesting game to see, how he does there kind of a deal. But I think then you're gonna ruffle some feathers, and depends on like how it goes. I think Robertson is the personality and a leader and a more mature player that is not gonna that didn't make us think, waited for his opportunity, and now is playing. But you might not get the same from an Ekitike and Isak or Mo and stuff like that. So it really depends on the personality of the player and how they're going to like react to it. But that's Slot's job. Kevin says, I hear Arteta out way more than Slot out. That's ridiculous. I mean, but that's what I mean. It's just, I called Arsenal fans ridiculous here for a long time for saying Arteta out and stuff like that after like a couple of losses or draws and stuff last season. I feel like it's, made fun of Arsenal fans, and having seen the Slot out crew with their pitchforks, that's why it's fucking embarrassing. I think it's embarrassing. It's no different than Arsenal fans. So if you're gonna go around about like, and I know like people are like, oh, that's not the majority. Look at the stadium and stuff like that. Nah, go to the socials. I guarantee you, it's not a lot better. It is not a lot better. I'm sad to report it's not a lot better when it comes to Liverpool fans, because just seeing the Slot out conversation alone, I think is just like freaking ridiculous. But hey, it's the world we live in. Like we talked about that a lot with like Gally on Monday night. It's been difficult to point fingers because Lauren is not here to blame. But I think it's a matter of are we looking at like just like recent form and trying to pick someone, and you can't pick someone, you can't pick a specific player because really it's kind of like been kind of crappy throughout. And now it's like, well, that's with the manager. Then I think he ends up being the common denominator and stuff. I think the correct terminology is how the tables have turned, actually, but it is. Charles, good morning, sir. Anyone forced Liverpool to break British transfer record? There's a way to spend money versus there's a billion ways to spend money. See, I think that's now. I mean, especially Liverpool. I don't know if you're a Liverpool fan or not, Charles, but I think that's very easy to do as a fan. If you did not bitch about the transfer season in when the league started, then I tell those fans to shut the fuck up because nobody complained about this transfer window. Nobody. The only thing was Gahey not going, like happening in the and that was not on us. That was more on like Palace than anything else. Maybe we could have offered more earlier than bottom or whatever, but we were gonna get if Gahey thing happened, it was literally deemed as the perfect transfer window. So people coming now and saying like, why do we spend the money on this? Can just go to hell because not to mention these are the same people who complained when we won the title last time, because some of us, win titles regularly. When we won the title last time and we did not change much, we only bring Thiago in, I think, that summer. Everybody complained. You're like, oh, you got to build from a position of strength and stuff like that. So it's very artificial and fake and phony to come in and say now, hey, why do we spend this money? And I've seen that. And I think like that's ridiculous. Chris says the Slot Out Brigade is also the FSG. I think there's a part of that, Chris. I think so. I think, yeah, I do agree to that. Now that you mentioned that, it's there is a lot of parallels. Now that you said that, so as I was reading that comments, I was thinking, who is Slot Out that I know, and I know also they're always FSG outs, but they had to be in hiding for a while. So this is their way of like coming out and be like, hey, get some air over there. And those are the fans I really hate. Like just almost they can't lose, right? If you lose, they win. If you win, they win. These guys will celebrate and say Slot is the greatest. Which he was on like Wednesday after we killed Real after beating Villa and stuff, and then they kind of like go to hiding and stuff. But I think the transfer record and stuff. I don't know. I mean, that's the point. I mean, I know what you're saying there, but I don't think that's it's too early to say that. I think it's way too early to say that. I think the problem is, and we talked about this before, it's more of a like a building the transition between the title winning team and the team they're trying to build is not looking great. Like those two circles, when they intersect, it's kind of like ugly in the middle. There is the way I'm looking at it, because this team is building to be like it would make a great 4-4-2, but then where the hell would you put Mo? And I think that's the problem we're running into. Really, we're going to see a better peek at the future when we go to AFCON. I really think so. And we talked about this, unless there's like other injuries or anything like that. But in terms of formation and how we're going to play, I think we're going to get like a really good sense of it then. That's why when I was talking about it earlier, I think Slots might have to make the tough decision and, implement that now. But there's a lot of dynamics, right? It's not like just everybody talks about like benching a player, like don't play him and blah, blah. I understand that, but you have as a manager, this is not like FIFA, the ultimate team. You're taking that card and putting this card in and stuff like that. There's a lot of like other stuff behind the scenes and how it's going to impact the team. I don't think, I mean, the whole collection of players thing, I'm not there yet. I think it's way too early to be there. It's only be a few months. And I think the quality of the players are there. More importantly, I think the biggest difference I see, Carl, compared to a United team, and we talked about this with like Edip too, who's a United fan or rival bros, that the players themselves are very different in terms of like the profile that Liverpool has gotten. And I know winning breeds positivity and losing does negativity, but I think you have more leaders, you have more players who are more like, captains and stuff like that. There are more leaders over here as opposed to just like, oh, let's get a Garnacho and let's get this. You know what I mean? There's like Liverpool, United had a lot of players who were like, yeah, pretty decent, but like problem childs at the same time, and not like definitely team players, not a lot of leaders. Fernandez is the captain of that team, and I think most United fans don't think that dude is a good leader. So I think that says it's by itself. Whereas when we were having, and like I say, just tune into Rival Bros. I'm not just saying it as a Liverpool fan. I guarantee you, Edip, and we'll talk about this with Edip. I think he'll agree to a lot of this too, that it's too early to say it. And I think the problem when we were looking for a vice captain for after Trent left, there were so many names being thrown around that were all good names, right? Meanwhile, you look at United's, and we were looking at it with Edip. Like we went through the squad. I remember it was maybe the first or second episode of Rival Bros, and we could not pick anybody who would be like he'd be a better captain, kind of a thing. So I think there's a difference there, and that's why I'm not there yet to call it a collection of players. I think it's way too early. I don't. Yeah, you might be right, but I don't know if that spot is going to be there or if that's how we're going to play, Chris. I mean, if we do like a 4-4-2, you probably have Soboslai on that right, and then you have Wirtz on the left with Maka and Gravenberg in the middle, Ikitike and Isak up top. The only problem with these are, when we make these lineups, they're great for one game. And hey, this is why I'm saying this team will win the Champions League or go really far in the Champions League. Because like it's great, right? So you put that out there on Wednesday, you go kill like somebody in the Premier League midweek. I mean the Champions League midweek. And then you come to the weekend, you can't really rotate a lot of pieces over here. In that 4-4-2, you don't have the same exact pieces. So I don't know what the vision was. I mean, all summer we heard about these players picking Liverpool because they kind of like the future plan. I don't think we are seeing the future plan now. I think we're kind of seeing the transition version, and it's pretty ugly. So I would rather have us play fast forwards and get to the plan. I don't think it's that easy in terms of like some of the players involved. And I don't know if you have the pieces yet, but I mean, people are already like spending a bazillion dollars in January after complaining about not being to bet these guys in. So it's going to take some time. I think bringing a player like Gahey, for example, would change a lot of things. But, and, we talked about that on Monday night too. I mean, it's kind of hard to make a case going back to what Chris was saying. I do have a tough time like making a case against, like giving Gomez an opportunity, giving Chiesa an opportunity and stuff like that, or at least more minutes, especially in Chiesa's case, more minutes. In Gomez, I think probably a start. Question a couple of the players we allowed to leave. I'm not questioning Nunes at all. I mean, anybody who's watched us over the last few years knows that. See ya. He's just not good enough. And not good enough for the Premier League, I don't think. I don't know how he's doing over there, by the way. Is he doing like I didn't even look up at his stats. We thought he would kill over there because I think he's a good player. He's a good kid and everything, but just doesn't have, I don't think, the skill set to play against like close defenses and stuff like that for Nunes. Diaz, I think right now he'd be very valuable, but I go back to this when the Diaz move happened over like summer, when the move happens, it was really hard to make a case against doing it in terms of the amount you're getting, the age of the player, and what he wanted. He wanted to get paid. We know FSG is not going to pay a player that old that money, especially after they did it with Mo. They're not going to do it to another player. Mo was kind of like the exception. So they were not going to increase his wages and give him a contract. And he wanted a signing bonus and all that kind of stuff too. So he wanted this money. I think at the time it looked great for everybody involved. So I find it hard to, as much as, yes, I was saying this to Gally on Monday, I think they had Doku. That used to be DS for us, caused some chaos where he doesn't even know where he's going. So therefore the defense doesn't either. So we just don't have that player right now. But like we could have used him there, but it's hard to go back and say, yeah, that was the wrong move there. Because at the time, I think in terms of value, how much you're getting, the player, what the player wanted, what we wanted, it worked out great for everybody. So it's kind of like to go back on it. Would I like to have him out there? Yes. But did the move make sense then? Still does on paper. Yeah, that's the problem. And I can't think of anybody else we lost that you would want to keep. I don't know what you guys think about Elliot, by the way. I was going to bring that up as well, like see what people think. Like the fact that he's not getting any opportunities at Villa is a little shocking to me, especially knowing Villa and stuff. Like, why did you guys get him then if you're not gonna be? Is he like pouting over there? Is he not playing over there? Like, I don't know what the situation is here too. If you can, let's get Gabe, maybe if we got Bicetic, and if you can integrate me, but yeah, I don't know about that kid. I really like his play, and I think it suits this midfield and slots. But man, the kids can't stay healthy. Yeah, see, I don't agree. It's like November 12th, man. It's like literally November 12th. I guess what I would ask you guys is if we were up by 7 points right now, are you like buying your tickets to the parades to fly over there and like get your plans, hotel and everything? No, I mean, we would not be like, we'd be happy as hell. We'd be a lot happier, that's for sure. But we wouldn't be like, we won the league. The league is over if you're up by 7 points in November 12th. If anything, people would be like, leagues are not won in November, is what you would get. So I don't understand the season is done talk. I really don't. Not that I'm saying like we're gonna win the Premier League, but I think there is still a chance where you don't say, and this is not the like American sports where we like we got to rebuild for next season and stuff. Like, how are we gonna rebuild? Like, what are we gonna do? We're gonna play the kids. We're gonna trade the guys. Like, I don't understand the rebuilding thing. We did rebuild. The problem is you can't keep rebuilding. You gotta kind of put a couple of pieces on top of each other before you add more pieces. I think you will get a center back in January, definitely, just for Leone. But Gally was saying, I did not confirm this, that he's might like his status shows December, but I was thinking maybe that I think like end of the year they put December kind of a thing, because I thought he was pretty much done for the season. People do want to. The problem is people want Fabinho, but Fabinho would not fit this system, for example. So unless the system is changing, that's not your defensive midfielder is probably, if you're getting anybody, you're not getting a Fabinho, you're probably getting another Gravenberg like player, is my guess. Because that's kind of like what Slot wants. You want somebody better on the ball. You have a Fabinho like player and it doesn't work. It's Endo. Like, it doesn't work in the system. Just because that's not what the system requires. If Mbappe worked like Holland, that not an Anfield, Liverpool would not have won the. I think the difference between Real. I mean, that's a good point. I mean, I'm not trying to say if Mbappe worked like Holland. I don't think it was Holland. I think overall, the City team had a lot more fight than Real. Real is like a bully where you punch him in the mouth, they kind of like back off. And I think it'd be a whole different ordeal, to be honest with you, if Valverde was in midfield. So that's not because I think we kind of like just totally controlled midfield. I don't think it's Mbappe alone. Yes, I mean, he wouldn't have hurt, obviously, if he helps defend. But I think more than that, you had a lot more fight from a lot more physicality. Like, Real looks like they were all over the place. Like, we bullied them that game. And I don't know if it makes a difference. I mean, somebody, I think maybe it was Bob, actually. Good morning, Bob. Good morning, Tony. I know, like, I think maybe Bob was saying on Monday, I can't remember, somebody said in the chats, and that is a big difference. That one was at Anfield and one was not at Etihad. So I don't know if that game is at Anfield. We play a lot more physical. You get the fan support and stuff like that, but that shouldn't be an excuse for players. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying that's probably like a legit reason for the control of the game and the physicality and stuff like that. I mean, yeah, but I don't think, just because Mbappe is working harder, they don't win that game. No, I think we created so easily in that game. They have way too many. I don't think Mbappe is the classic example, but I think they have too many passengers on that team who are just waiting for Real to get the ball back, because they are mostly used to having the ball. So they don't have they're like, just like, okay, whenever you guys get the ball, let's go attack again, kind of a deal, because that's kind of like how they're in the Spanish league. So there's not a lot of, I mean, even Bellingham is not the old Bellingham. I don't see him working as hard off the ball as he used to, because I think he kind of liked that glory. Hey, look, and who did he recruit over there? A guy who likes attacking glory and not big on defending over there. That's why I was like, yeah, enjoy Trent, because that's why I think Trent feels like a glove over there. But then in some games like this, they are going to struggle because. But what happens with Real, I think, and this is why they do good in the Champions League, as they advance, they kind of like sleepwalk through these rounds. And then as they advance, those guys start to play. And once they have that work rate, going back to what you were saying, Charles, once they have that work rate, I think things start to change and they play better and stuff. They become a better team. But yeah, I mean, looking at that, there's like way too many passengers on that one. I mean, Arda Güler, who's like my like because he's Turkish and because he's from Fenerbahce, like I love the kids, but like he just got like all muscled and all worked in that midfield. Didn't look like he had a lot of help. He's not that kind of player himself. He's a lot more on the ball guy than off the ball guy. I think they have way too many of those guys on the pitch at the same time. Then, couple of things over here. Bob says season is not done. I'm telling, yes, that's what I was just telling Bob. Yes, you must have heard it and run over because I feel the same way. I think if we have a good run, this is the 6 minutes left in the third quarter. I'm telling you, we just go get like 4 or 5 runs. I think it will make like a difference, and then we'll see. Because is Arsenal going to be able to go on the same run? City is going to. We'll see. Like and end of December, I think if you are within 4 points, you're in the title race, and I think if we were up 4 points in December, we would be worried. I mean, I would be worried, but I worry as a lifestyle. So, Doku especially versus Bradley then could not to. Here's another thing I think a lot of difference between, and this is what I was going back to, is the interchangeable pieces of, that team played great. I don't know if that team is good enough to play the same way, Charles, 3 times a week. That was a big part of it. And I think the Doku thing, I don't think Bradley got the same coverage. And Doku is a bit more physical. And honestly, I think City is a lot more tactically disciplined team than Real is. So, like when you talk about, for example, like even like Holland versus Mbappe and stuff like that, they were able to isolate. If you go back to the Real game, there are a lot of times it looks like, oh shit, it's Vinicius on Bradley. But within a second or two, there's a guy appearing in the background. So, it really affects what Vinicius can do. So he gets like one dimensional. He has to like cut or go back or whatever. I don't think we had that. Like we left him out to hang out to dry over there because I think Konate was too busy with Holland and like keeping an eye on him, and he was having a bad game. And I think who was having a pretty rough game that it does not get brought up is Gravenberg. I thought he was pretty poor that day, so it could not help at all. But I think Doku is a lot more physical as well. And here I don't know if you guys saw this, but after the Real game, I was watching like the studio, and Thierry Henry was talking about, just freaking like take him on. Like there was space there, and Vinicius did not want to challenge Bradley that much with speed. Whereas I felt like Doku threatened to cut in, threatened to take him down the line. It was a lot more of a classic winger thing. The thing unlucky for us is Doku, who usually does not have the final product, because he does this every game. If you watch City, when he comes in, he does this every game and torments Adama Traore style, where he can like torment the other defender with his, pace and physicality and stuff like that. But the final, like the end product was never great. He definitely had that freaking this weekend. I mean, that's not a goal that Doku normally scores, for example, but he was, his crosses were all effective and stuff like that. I usually liken him into an Adama Traore, who's like a physical beast and everything. It's like Adama Traore minus the oil when you look at Doku, but like his final product was a lot better passing, shooting wise and stuff like that on Sunday. That's something that you normally do not get. Yeah, the problem with that, Bob, is that's not a guarantee, unfortunately, but it's a opportunity. Let's put it that way. It's not a guarantee that on paper they're easier oppositions, but we have not seen this team. I think the good thing about the Villa Real City games, and I was hopeful on these 3, is the fact that we were playing against teams who have their own ego in terms of like coming out from the back, passing out and stuff like that. So that's kind of like the part of it there where I felt like, hey, we can really get these teams because they play in a style that's kind of almost like not helps us, but it's easier for us to play against. We can press, we can win the ball up top, and all that kind of stuff. When you play these bottom table teams, we have proven that we can't do well with that long ball and stuff. How we're going to deal with that is going to be a thing. So while I'm with you, Bob, in the positivity and holding the hope, there is a slight worry about how we will play against those teams, to be honest with you, in the back of my head. So Nick, man, you've been around, for a while. Yes. And I think the problem is, I mean, last year when we were like, oh, this is just pure genius. Don't let Mo defend, and he scores goals. But the problem is when Mo is not getting those goals, then it looks like, well, he's not doing anything right now. So, but I do feel like Mo, Wirtz, you look at that City game, there's so many situations where it looks like we're on the attack. We get the ball out wide, they're on the ball and they look up and there's nobody. And I don't know if that was just tired legs, but just like, the midfield could not go back and forth as much and like provides kind of like help. And then what happened was like with Veers, either he passed it back or he tried to do something and he got like outnumbered and lost the ball. So do players get no, see, I'm not buying that. And I think that's like really another like fan thing that really annoys me, to be honest with you, Charles. That's, like for people saying Mo got the money and he's not playing that's just full of shit. You just don't know Mo then. You have not been following this team. You have not been following Mo and like the drive, like the ridiculous drive that guy has. And I think it's the same thing for Van Dijk. The problem with Van Dijk is Van Dijk always looks like he doesn't care. And he's looked like that for the last decade when he plays, right? Calm as you like. So when it works, it's like, look at this guy. He looks like he's playing with 5-year-olds. But when it doesn't work, it looks like he doesn't care. He's not giving effort and stuff like that. It's the same dude, same demeanor. And Rooney can go fuck himself. I mean, like anybody in the media that gets into a beef with players is because, it helps the guy in media because then everybody's asking Rooney about what's the beef with Van Dijk and stuff. Nobody cares. I mean, like I highly doubt Van Dijk cares. I don't know if you guys caught about like the shit that Jamie gets, which we love Jamie. Obviously, we help his foundation and stuff, but that he gets in the locker room from like the players and stuff like that. I just don't think. I think, like that's the easy route out to criticize those two. People have found ways to criticize each player in a different way. I feel like that's the one that they have found. Rooney never got a contract like that. So that's probably he's bitter because they dumped him at the end instead of giving him the contract. So I think that's why Rooney is bitter because United said fuck off instead of giving a contract at the end that Liverpool gave Van Dijk because Van Dijk is still Van Dijk. I mean, the problem is I think we're so used to Van Dijk being a Superman and like playing out of his minds that when he's a little human, it really sticks out now suddenly. And it doesn't help that he has like Konate next to him and he's in really poor form. Maybe Van Dijk is not going to be in the next season or two. He's going to be a really good center back, but maybe he's not going to be a center back who takes whoever you put next to him, a 6 out of 10 into a 9 out of 10. I think you will have to put like a 7 or 8 next to him to make things go. So yeah, exactly. And I think that's some of the bitterness, like these especially the recent players. I think there's a lot of like resentment because they see now, and I think we see now in the sports overall how much more power the players have. Rooney wishes he had that power and be able to like kind of like pull off things in contracts and stuff like that. Managers go way before players do and stuff. So I think especially most of these recent guys within the last 10, 15 years are more bitter than anything else. I know I find it hard to, and a lot of these people are like, basically they're just like sold out to media now. They're media people. They're not just ex-players. So they say something to get the clicks and stuff like that. They have basically sold out. And you would not normally care, like Charles, if I said, what does Rooney think? You'd be like, who gives a fuck? But then Rudy gets into a thing like this and he becomes more of a thing over there. No, I'm not saying that. That's just for any player. Doesn't matter who they are. Once they're in media, they just kind of like sell out to media. They have to criticize. They have to say stuff. And I feel like sometimes, I mean, for those in the U.S., I mean, if you watch ESPN, like Steve Nicol is like the most negative guy I've ever seen because I feel like some of these guys almost go out of their way to be negative or extra critical of Liverpool players and stuff like that. So I don't know. Like, if anybody thinks like Van Dijk and Mo stop playing because they got paid, I don't think they know these players well enough to even like comment that. It's just like a cheap take that's I can have my dog make downstairs. So doesn't need to be an expert over there. No, see, I don't. I think what the thing is, he was the chance creator because I think he rolled the dice. I think if we took the leash off of some of these guys, that's my thing with Nick. I think that's why he wasn't big on Trent, and we can argue Slot's tactics in terms of stance. I said it over and over here last year. I guarantee you, Slot is hoping Trent is gone because some of the things he does in terms of turning the ball over because he's rolling the dice is not, I don't think, what Slot wants. But now nobody is doing that. And I think you can argue that you need at least one person to be doing that on your team. That's a different argument. But anybody could be doing that, to be honest with you. I mean, I think if you open the door to Wirtz to do that, he would do more of that. But the system, I think, goes after, you were talking, Nick, earlier about, possession based versus press and stuff. I think it's more like possession based or values possession, so is not as big on taking those chances. So nobody's taking those chances. So, and yeah, I don't know. No, no liability. No, Kirkes, maybe you can say had like a rocky start and stuff like that, but seriously, like the amount of if people are still saying Trent, come on, Nick, get the hell out of here. If you're still saying Trent after what Trent did, I mean, unless you're saying like you miss him as a player or something like that. I mean, apart from his passing, do we really need to miss his defending? You think he would do a lot better against Doku this year? I mean, heck with that. I mean, and I don't think Wirtz is a liability defensively. It's just not, the system is not there at the moment. Current, yes, Jamie is a bit of a homer. But yes, it is. Sometimes it's like a little too obnoxious, but at least I enjoy it more than guys taking themselves seriously, I would say. But Nick, this is what I'm saying, man. Like, if you roll the dice, if I let you play long balls from the back, you would create chances too. Okay, maybe not as many as Trent because his passing range was great. Don't get me wrong; it's not like I'm diminishing that, but you would create those chances too. If they told Bradley, "Hey, go long, see if you can create chances," maybe he wouldn't do 50% like Trent did, but he would get it 40%, 35% of the time. That's just not how we're playing right now. You can argue that's how we should be playing, but that's not how we're playing right now. We're like valuing possession. We're not rolling the dice. And that's why it looks a little stagnant. I think a couple of players, don't get me wrong, I agree with you in the sense that I think a couple of players should probably be taking more chances instead of kind of like constantly recycling. But sadly, that's not how we're playing right now. So, and look, I thought we didn't have anything to talk about, but can go probably on and on with this because I think we kind of all like searching for some kind of like answers on this. But hey, you want answers? You can tune in tomorrow night. I'm sure those guys will have the answer in firing slots. The Bald crew is not big on overall. I think Shelton is still on board with slot over there. But Mecca, Kazi, Serzi, and Kazi. Or did I say that twice? Either way, the Bald crew will be on tomorrow nights, 7 o'clock Central, 8 o'clock Eastern. I'll be back next week. I think Galley's on Friday with Kazi. So I'll be there. I'll be here next week, hopefully, and we'll talk about more as we get ready for the season. A lot of stuff happening on the website and all that kind of stuff too. So check out our socials over there. If you have not subscribed to the socials, please do. And more importantly, if you are not subscribed to this channel, please do, and please spread the word. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks for all the comments, all the likes. I'm assuming everybody hit the likes. If you didn't, shame on you, but hit the likes. Have a great week. I'll see you guys next week. Take care.